ESG and lending, we've obviously heard a lot over the last kind of day and a half about ESG from kind of different perspectives. And actually, Sandra's overview of where debt funds have gone in recent times and kind of what is the common standard is really useful, because I use that as a kind of launching pad into something that's maybe a bit more practical, i.e. how do we underwrite ESG risks in our lending portfolio. So one thing to observe is that times have changed, right? So managers across both the equity and lending side have started to think carefully about costs. They've started thinking more carefully about the complexity of some of their work around these issues. And what we're finding, and speaking to some of the advisors that we work with on the ESG side and some of our own internal people who look at both the equity and the debt side of the business, is that the work around ESG has evolved over the last few years as the market has adjusted. It's become, in many ways, much simpler. And I think we're trending towards something which is kind of a common standard, in particular on the environmental side. I think the way it works now for a lot of managers, both on the equity and the debt side, is that the E aspect, every single investment has got a criteria, and it's tightening and tightening over time. The way they think about those social characteristics is less to think about it for every single investment, and more to think about targeted investments that fulfill social criteria, and accept that for a very large proportion of your portfolio, the social factors are still a consideration, but not a hugely overweighted one relative to the E factor. The other thing we're going to touch on is that a lot of the certifications that have been out there for a long time that are kind of well known in the market, if the tick box exercises, they're kind of falling out of favor because they don't really reflect the kind of fundamental goals that we're aiming for. The other topic that's coming up a lot, and I'll touch on, is climate resilience. What does it actually mean? Are we talking about kind of physical characteristics of the asset? Are we trying to assess some sort of impact of climate change on value? That's a little bit nebulous, but I think we're starting to get closer to a kind of market standard. And finally, and perhaps controversially, I'm going to argue that lenders can actually drive some change. They can actually push their borrowers further in the direction of meeting a market standard, because they have to make sure that at the end of the day, they're lending on an asset that's going to have liquidity at exit, which is, from our perspective, the kind of key consideration.